Welcome to Relationship Mastery, a podcast for those who want to learn how to master the art of creating happy, healthy, and loving relationships. Please join me, Adey-Jones, and my co-host, Barry Selby, each Tuesday at 1 p.m. Pacific for a lively and informative conversation on everything to do with relationships. Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us again. Hi, Barry.
Hi, Dell. It's going to be a fun topic today.
He's telling me off for having the answer within the title here, but
I wasn't telling you off, but just saying it was,
but yes, I do. I do believe that it is futile trying to change another person, but we're human and we do it. But I do feel that we'd love to point out this week why it's important to realize that most of the time it's futile. I'll say that, not every time, but why are we doing it? Why are we choosing somebody that we cannot accept as they are? Why are we choosing to be with somebody that we see potential in and then put all our effort into making them into this person we want, as opposed to maybe holding out and seeing if there's a better match for us somewhere else?
Well, the answer to what you said right there is the fact is you want to make them into something you want, meaning they weren't what you wanted when you first started, which is the challenge. And so there are people out there who seem to like to date fixer-uppers. And it's like, you don't want to date a project unless you really are into that mode, because it's going to be more than you think it's worth. The thing is, yes, it is. I mean, at the highest level, you accept what you get, sort of thing, and you're fine with it, which is not very common, frankly, but it's the ideal, so to speak. Really, it's funny. The song keeps going in my head. Is Billy Joel's song, "Don't Go Changing." It's always in my head when I hear the thing about change in relationship. But I think so many people may have an ideal of a relationship, and what shows up doesn't quite match it. And so there's this nagging feeling they should change the person to match the ideal they have versus adjust the ideal they have to the person they're with.
Yeah, that's a great point. It really is. And I always say, I have a little bit of an issue with this law of attraction. The secret, when it came out many years ago, is that you just make your list and you will get the perfect partner. You're gonna tick every single box. And I saw a lot of people walk away from some really amazing relationships because it didn't have, everything they believed that they were entitled to and deserved. And I'm not about settling in a relationship, but I do believe that I've always had this when I do my classes, I say it's like a relationship is like a pie. And if 7 pieces of the pie are absolutely just what you want, and the 3 other little pieces are just minor things that you would prefer if they were different, but they're not deal breakers. They're minor things. We're not talking about addiction, abuse, any of those things, lying, infidelity, whatever. We're not talking about those are not in those 3 pieces, but maybe it's simply that the person doesn't, have a little more hair on his head than they wish that he had, or something. But just silly things, or maybe just things that are really tolerable. They're not deal breakers. But the thing, what I say is, don't go into it going, these 3 things I can fix and change.
Yeah.
Go into it going, these 3 things are not my favorite things, but they're part of the package. And this other 7 parts of this, pie here is so amazing. I'm ready to accept these minor things.
That's the thing, that they are minor, because it is the thing. I mean, and you did hint at it earlier. Is there's when you're in a relationship, discover things about the person that you weren't either expecting, or that you realize that the relationship's more important enough. So we want to see if we can adjust or change something, because there can be absolutely. I'm very much passionate about personal development. Been doing it for years. So with somebody who hasn't done that sort of work, first of all, we probably won't be together in the first place. So it won't be an issue. But if we are in it together, we are doing stuff, there's going to be certain things I'd recommend that she learn about, whether it's through books or through some other thing, because the worldview for me is different from this from a lot of people, of how people are and how we interact. So the changing piece, you don't go in intending to do that. No, absolutely not. But what can happen, though, is you're in a relationship over a period of time, a year, 6 years, 10 years, wherever it is, where you discover there's some things that show up because you've been in a relationship that you didn't discover before. And so there's some things you might want to change in yourself, and there may be things your partner wants to change, or you may want to see in your partner that you could invite them to change, because again, you don't want to change them, but you certainly can hurt to invite them if you notice that they've got a self-deprecating way of being that's not ideal for them. Maybe they want to go see. You might suggest, I love who you are, but I want you to shine. I want you to be all you can be. And I notice you have this habit of, like, knocking yourself down all the time.
Mhm.
Maybe can I invite you to go get some help with somebody, or read a book on that might help you change your mindset so you actually have more success, because I love you so much. I want that for you. Now, the key thing, caveat right on top of that, is you don't use that as a battering. You don't use that as a baseball bat to beat them up with it. Love you
Yeah,
so much, but you must do this for me, that sort of thing.
I actually I hear what you're saying, but I personally think that's a big thing, and I think that's something that you notice right off the bat. So I think that has to be something that's within the seven parts that is it's acceptable to you. Or I definitely not saying that there aren't things that can come up within the relationship that need to be addressed. I mean, we evolve, we grow, we change constantly. I think there's always an opportunity to say to our partners, "Oh, I see I'm changing this direction. Is this something you want to go on this journey with me?" I
Yeah.
think that's okay to do that. But I think to say to somebody, "Yeah, I'm sorry, but I've noticed that you put yourself down a lot. You should go to therapy." I'm not so sure that one's going to work.
Again, it's how you approach.
Oh, that's funny. But there are things that I do believe that we do tend to have set points. We tend to have a personality that as much as and I'm firm again with you, I've been on this, self discovery journey for many, many years. Um, but I also feel that we do have our natural set points. And
Yeah.
as much as we might try and change and try and evolve, it's very few people really, really, really change. And it
Mhm.
does require an awful lot of effort. And it requires the effort to come from you, within you, not from your partner, efforting from you and telling you that you need to get help and to grow and to evolve. But I do think it's very important that we are on our own journey. And if our partner either and if we are doing our own work and we're changing and changing and changing, again, as I said, check in with your partner to make sure that you're still feeling connected. And if there's something you can do together that
Mhm.
doesn't have whatever change is happening completely tear you apart. But it's an
Right.
invitation. It's not a blackmail of you must do this, otherwise I'm leaving.
Absolutely, because if you're doing blackmail, you shouldn't have been in the relationship, frankly. It's like, you've gone too far. But
Yeah.
yeah, again, invitation is key. The joy of that is that, in a way, you get to develop together. That's the other part of this, and this is something I'll add to the question. It's about, if it's something where you want to grow and you want to invite your partner to do it with you, like, you want to start taking yoga and you want your partner to do it with you, that can be an incredible gift for the relationship, because it can have you both become more flexible, more fluid, more spiritual, more connected.
Mhm.
That if only one of you did, you miss out. And I've in my book, I've doing this thing about the rubber band experience in relationships. How when one partner changes and grows, evolves, takes on a new thing, whether it's develops a new skill or goes into a traumatic experience, something in their life changes them. They become different. That puts a great tension on the relationship between the two people. And the second person may look at that first person and go, I don't want the change, but I want them back again. And they'll do what they can to sabotage that person to bring them back, which sometimes happens.
Yeah.
It's rare, but the other option is the other person goes, I want what they have, and they'll start growing their own way. They'll start by, not even by the other first person saying anything. They'll just encourage them. They'll be encouraged by what they see, saying, they look so much happier. I want some of that too. Let me do what I need to do to become equal with that.
See, that's exactly the point here, which is great, which is that is free will, personal choice. I see something I want to move towards. It's
Yeah.
not the person saying you must move with me to this to over here. It's that the opportunity for change and growth is coming from within that one person. And
Hmm.
the other thing that I often, and this is so interesting, and I noticed it in myself even, um, what can often initially attract you to something is the thing that in the end drives you mad and you actually want to change. And you need to remind yourself that was what made this person unique. That's what
Hmm.
I liked about them. And I'm laughing here because I'm thinking of my ex-Italian husband. Now, the
Hmm.
fact he was very Italian was very attractive to me in the beginning, but after 18 years, it wore on me because he was a very, sort of typical macho Italian guy. But I have to accept that that's what I married. It
Right.
didn't wasn't so evident until after we had children, but still, there's that part of it, which is recognize the uniqueness of this human being and why you're attracted to them, which is the totality of them. Then the other thing I wanted to mention was when we do nag and try and change, we are 100% ripping away at the fabric of that relationship. The other person has no other opportunity than to feel that they're not good enough, um, that they're constantly being criticized, that the message they're getting is, well, just simply that you're not good enough. I want you to be different. I want you to change. And that can tear at the relationship, not the differences but the discontent, the disgruntled wanting the other person to change constantly. And
Yeah.
then you touched on something earlier about sabotage, and I've noticed that, and especially with the work that I do, because I work a lot with codependency and narcissistic abuse. But sometimes I'll work with somebody that's suffering from codependency, and they're in a relationship with an addict,
Hmm.
and it's often traced back to one of their parents was an addict, and they're doing a redo, as they say. So they bring in exactly the same relationship to try and change it and try and have it work out differently.
Yeah.
It gives them a sense of power. It's like, my dad may have been an alcoholic, I couldn't stop him drinking, or my mother was an alcoholic and I couldn't stop her drinking, but I can stop my partner. This is how strong I am. And there's a very childlike quality to that. It's a wounded child within that wants a different outcome. What,
Absolutely.
but what can often happen, unbeknownst to them, because they're on a mission to change this other person, is the other person might change and give up drinking or drugs or whatever. And the whole dynamic of the relationship suddenly shifts. And all of a sudden, the person that wants to be in control, wants to change the other person, they get the change they say they want, and then they don't like it.
Exactly.
They don't like losing that power and control over that other person. And
Hmm.
they will do anything they can to sabotage that.
Yeah.
It's something we have to really look at is what is driving us to want to control, manipulate, or change another human being.
This is where, in a way, the challenge of unconditional love comes in. Because the thing is, I've talked this before, that unconditional love relieve your relationship with spirit, that relationships are conditional. And yet that piece you talked about is there's such a controlling desire to fix or manipulate what's happening that's not conditional anymore. So I use unconditional love in the sense that you can like offer your partner something they can do for themselves, but be unattached to them choosing it or not choosing it, and then be okay with that. Which is ideally, I mean, I mean, it is altruistic to a degree, but it's being centered enough to say, you know what, I know I can't make you do this, but if you did it, I'd love it if you did. But also, if you don't do it, it's okay. Now, enough of those get stacked up, you might decide it's time to leave the relationship, of course. But if there's one of these things happens out of the blue once in a while, it might be something you can negotiate with yourself first to be at peace with whatever they choose to do with it.
Yeah, yeah, and I want to go back to rest, really pinpoint what I'm trying to say is some people delude themselves into thinking they want to be with this better version of their partner. They think that's really what they want is that
Right.
person, but a better version of it. And what they don't realize is no, they're actually addicted to trying to control and manipulate and change other people. That's the part that's got them hooked into the relationship, not the person who is seven pieces of the pie and you're trying to change the other three pieces. It's an interesting dynamic. And again, we always say this every week, it's self-awareness, awareness
Yes.
of self. Why are we doing this? And I also want to bring up a point here because we did talk about this quite a few episodes ago, which was the shadow. And
Hmm.
usually it's our shadow, the part of ourselves that we have rejected or disliked or would have sworn never to be like, that is in the other person, and it's basically they are demonstrating something that we either don't like about ourselves or would never allow ourselves to do. And because we're not clear on it, we don't know it's our shadow. We think it's them and that we are trying to change them, but we're actually trying to change what we don't like in ourselves or won't
Right.
make in ourselves.
Which is why it doesn't work to change the other person, because we still have the same issue which is inside of us. And that's and this we talked about a lot, and I know you talk and you work with clients, so do I, is until we look at what's inside of us in the first place, we're going to keep attracting the same sort of experience with different partners. And even though the faces change, the patterns don't.
Mhm.
So it's vital to redo the inner work first. But I want to go back to, because I'm now getting what you're saying before, is there's some people who feel alive when they're in the process of trying to change something, not the result, but in the process of it. And so, yeah, they get caught up. It's like they don't care about the ending. They just want to be in the feeling of like, I'm making a difference. I'm having it happen. Because when it's already done, there's no feeling anymore.
Exactly.
So that juice, that grist is what keeps them going. And it is definitely something that is not fun to play with.
No, well, it's not fun if you're being played with by somebody who
Yeah.
who is in that energy.
Hmm.
Yeah, exactly. I'm going back again for a second to this the shadow,
Yeah.
because I do want to talk about codependency and narcissistic abuse. And I, as the classic codependent I was growing up, I was attracted to, because I was so full of insecurity and lack of self worth and everything. I was very attracted to somebody that looked like they had, a lot of self confidence and
Yeah.
self worth, and so I was very attracted to that. But what happened again, it's like, be careful what you're attracted to. So I was attracted to that. I liked that. I knew that was a missing piece that I didn't have within myself. But it very quickly, when you're with a narcissist, goes over into outrageous selfishness, which is the antithesis of being codependent. So here you are as a codependent who has always shoved down your needs and wants, always put yourself second, always put other people first. And here, sitting opposite you at the kitchen table, is the most outrageous, selfish person on the planet. And initially, as I said, there could be this sort of opposites attract thing. But in the end, what ends up happening is just sitting there in outrage, going, how could you have no empathy? How
Mhm.
could you be so selfish? How could you be so callous? Everything you're not. And what it is a little bit of selfishness is okay. A little less sensitive to other people's needs and more to your own is okay. So what ended up happening after, the being in this narcissistic relationship, I really saw my partner as a teacher,
Mhm.
showing me what was out of balance in myself.
Yeah.
I had to build up my self-worth. I had to build up my selfishness, for want of a better word, a little more entitlement. Because here we've
Mhm.
got the narcissist up here with all this major entitlement, and then we've got this codependent down here with like no level of entitlement. It's a completely imbalanced relationship. And that's why you'll constantly keep attracting each other, because you're both out of balance. Now,
Yeah.
if you do your work and you come up into balance and you less um, self-deprecating, less self-conscious, and more aware of your own needs and not taking care of everybody else above yourself, you'll stop attracting those narcissists. You'll attract a like-minded person, a healthy person. So
Absolutely.
it's, again, the power is within you. By changing yourself, you're changing the people you're in relationship with, not,
Which,
not by staying the same and going out there and
well,
constantly choosing.
the thing is, though, most of the population are based on the fact that this is a relationship didn't work out. Let me swipe on somebody else and do the same thing all over again. And yeah, we've both been through the journey with USM and other things too. So we both know that when we do the work inside, the outside changes to match that. And that really is the secret for all of this work, is that if you really want to try and change somebody else, what is it inside you that's not happy with what you have? Like the 7 piece versus the 3 piece, is maybe there's some work you do on yourself that allows it to change your perspective, so the other person becomes what you want without them doing anything. And
Mhm.
that's the biggest gift of all, because you become clear. It's like, oh, I had such an attachment to doing this, this, and this. When I really figured out that was because something happened when I was a kid, I don't need it anymore. I can let go of it. I'm shortcutting the whole process, of course.
Yeah.
then the person you're with doesn't change anything, but you don't even notice those things that, quote, didn't work before because you've done the inner work. So it is really a self-centric, or a there's a word that came up for me when you talk about self-validation. It's like it's self-honoring choice. That really is the focus in that way. And so when you start to really honor yourself, and it's also about having clearer understanding what you want to have. Like, flashback again, because you talked about the Abraham Hicks thing. Is I remember a seminar years ago talking about things about, what do you really want? And I remember this teacher saying, it's like, back then you wanted this high end, top of the line BMW. Oh, it's such a great car, yeah. But then you got maintenance and insurance and road repairs and all these other things too. So when you ask for something, be aware there's other things that go with it as well. So a relationship might say, I want to have this particular person, but that may involve where they live. It might involve what they do for a living. Might involve some of the history, the family patterns. So be aware that what you're looking for, if you think you have your list, is it's not going to cover everything. And frankly, you don't want a list to cover everything. But also know that you might be surprised pleasantly and sometimes unpleasantly by what shows up in your new date. So
Yes.
it's being fluid and flexible, but two, being more clear that you're okay with yourself no matter what happens.
Yeah. Yeah, and also again, authenticity. Show yourself. If it's not a match, it's not a match. Don't
Yeah.
pretend to go in an interview. Don't
Oh yeah.
pretend to be something you're not, and then hope that you're going to win them over. And then here you are, both acting a role that's not authentic and can't be kept up. Quite frankly, the
Yeah.
other thing, we've got a few minutes left, and I really want to touch on this. And the reason I said change other people rather than change your partner is because it goes beyond just your partner. It goes to, if you have children, you
Mhm.
know, again, these beautiful, special, unique human beings that came through you are not of you. They're not yours. If we can witness them, and we guide them, we love them, we give them what we can, but at some point we just got to let go and let them be. They are all their own people. And there's
Mhm.
nothing worse. I mean, I love my mother very much, but she was a narcissist. And living with disappointment every single day, because that's just her nature. That's what she was. It- she shamed you, and she was disappointed. And it's to live with that feeling of never measuring up, or being shamed for something you've done, which was not, so minor or so not shameful. Just simply things like maybe forgetting your manners once or something like that. But that constant nagging and shaming towards your children is so harmful. Really wanted to comment on that. And the same thing with your parents. They there's an I work a lot with people that have issues with their parents, and at some point you do have to let go of the fact, mourn it, have the awareness that it wasn't the parental situation that you wished you'd had. But
Mhm.
if you want to maintain a relationship with your parents, you've got to accept them as they are, especially as they're getting older, and they're not going to change.
No, they're not. And that's the thing, is you have to do, that's when you really have to look in the mirror, because you go and say, okay, what is it that's triggering me about them that I know I can't fix or change?
Mhm.
But can at least change how I view them so I can accept what is.
Yeah,
And that's something
exactly.
we can do, is to accept what really is going on, because then we can be less reactive to and less disturbed by what happens out there. Yeah, absolutely.
Well, with the parents for a second, it's like it's very easy to, and this is where the three principles, and we are always living in the feeling of our thinking. It's having the awareness of where you put your attention. Now, if you're focusing on the past and what wasn't right and what hurt you and things like that, I'm a firm believer in up and out. Get it up and out. Do not bury. Do not, it's energy. It's stuck in you. It's history. It's going through you. It's old thoughts. It's whatever it is. Just up and out. Not up and at. There's a difference. We don't throw it at our parents, but it's
Oh
up and
yeah.
out. It's whether it's a coach or a therapist or whatever. It's like get it up and out. But once that movement has occurred, you then think to yourself, would I rather focus on what I didn't have, or would I rather, which feels awful, or would I rather focus on what I did have, which actually makes me feel a bit better? That's our
Yeah.
feel, where we place our focus. So that's what I wanted to mention very much about, the relationship with our parents and not wishing they would change. But sometimes, again, and this is another big one, our work environments. We wish our boss was different. And
Oh yeah.
every we go to work and we resent them and we're passive aggressive and we're, again, we are making ourselves miserable.
Yes.
We could either leave the job, or we could, again, feel what we're feeling, release it in a safe space, but also choose to look at it either as all bad, negative, he's whatever, controlling, aggressive, narcissistic, blah, blah, blah. Or we could go, God, I'm really grateful that I have this job. There are elements to this job that I wouldn't have anywhere else. And to just know that ultimately you have the power. I mean,
Right.
the Viktor Frankl book, it's man's
Meaning.
meaning of life, or meaning of
That's
man's, whatever it is. Viktor Frankl. Anyway, look it up. But it's our ultimate control. Is everything can be taken away from us, but how we respond is ultimately what can never be taken away from us. And
yeah.
that's what this change thing, is all about. Is we use all of this effort and energy trying to control others when we just have to accept that we can't.
Well, the reality is very simple. The only thing we can control is ourselves and how we feel.
Yeah, exactly.
And it's A Man's Search for Meaning is the book from Viktor Frankl.
Yes,
And
thank you.
he said the last thing that's left to you when you have no control over everything else is your attitude, is how you respond to things.
Yeah,
And frankly, if you have control over that, you have dominion.
yeah.
And in a relationship, especially when stuff's going on, stuff's coming up, there's issues and upsets and volatile feelings. The only thing you really have governance over is how you choose to respond to what's happening. And sometimes the best thing to do is not do anything. So the challenge to most people in a relationship is not defend yourself, because the other person's attacking you. The best defense sometimes is to do nothing at all. So you can be centered and stay present with yourself. The other person can use up their energy, be upset and throw their tantrums. No violence, of course, that's a different story, but in this sense, and you get to just stay present, because when they're upset, there's something underneath that's triggering them. It's not about the upset. And if you hold space and simply don't take it on, and you don't take it on, by the way, you can allow that person to really vent enough to get to the point of what's really hurting inside. And you
Mhm.
might discover something magical, and you might discover there's actually a closeness that happens because you didn't react and fight and bang heads with each other. You stay present.
And I wanted to also jump on that for a second, because that's another way in which we try and change and control. When there
Yeah.
are two people in a relationship, whether it's intimate, parental, child, whatever it is, if there's two people, one person is going off here all over the place, highly emotional and everything. And when the other person starts to take things personally and
Mhm.
tries, or they're uncomfortable with the chaos and the upset, they try and control the other person so that they feel okay.
Yeah.
Now,
Shut them down. Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
shut them down, to try and soothe them. What's wrong with you? It's okay. Don't worry. Don't get upset. I'm sorry. Whatever it is, it's like, no, let them have their feelings. You take care of you. You settle, and you just stay centered while the other person is having what they're feeling. They will eventually settle down, and that's
Mhm.
when you communicate, is when they've settled down. But again, resist the temptation, because all you're doing is it's a way of trying to take care of yourself. You're recognizing that you're getting upset because you're uncomfortable around discord, or aggression, or whatever it is. Um, Again, I'm not talking physical aggression. I'm just talking about somebody that's out of sorts and upset and angry and whatever. But again, use that energy to focus on yourself and to settle yourself, to calm yourself, not to try and control and calm the other person. Not your job.
Yep.
So, yeah, I think we've touched on many of the different ways of
Yeah.
how trying to change the other person shows up in our life, in all of our relationships.
Oh yeah. That's why we have so many episodes to talk about, because we've covered so much, because there's so much to talk about relationship. So we got more to go.
Yes. Thank you, everybody, again. Thank you, Barry. And we will see you all next week.
Thanks, Del. See you next week.
Bye bye.
Bye. We trust you enjoyed this episode and invite you to share this with your friends and loved ones. In fact, please subscribe to our Relationship Mastery podcast. That way you'll get each new episode fresh and shiny as soon as it is released. We'd love to hear from you as well. So go ahead and enter your questions and comments at relationshipmastery.show. Take good care. We will connect with you in our next episode of Relationship Mastery.